Alright, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about my philosophy or some of my thoughts on training knives as it applies to martial arts and some of the different kinds of training knives that I would recommend depending on what kind of training you're doing. So the first kind of training knife that I think most anybody who practices knife techniques, whether it's disarming or actually utilizing the knife as a weapon in martial arts, is something like this. This is, I believe, made by Burke. It's a soft knife. As you can see, it's a flexible, soft tip knife. And the reason you want something like this, it's a very generic design. And like you can see, they're going to have some give to them. So if you're actually doing full resistance sparring or full resistance technique, and you jab somebody real hard in the ribs or in the kidney or the liver, it's not going to damage their internal organs or break a rib. So it's a big safety thing. You can actually go a lot harder with something like this. Now the next step up from that is something like these. These are a little more rigid and solid, but once again they're kind of just a generic training knife. This one here is a personal favorite. These ones are made by Keen Edge, and this one is made by Empire Training. I don't know if you can read that. But yeah, both very generic. But the reason you might want to use something solid instead of something that is flexible like those ones is for certain techniques, actually being able to apply some leverage onto the blade is important. You would want to practice techniques like that a little slower because they're not going to be as safe as, for example, full resistance sparring or something. But at a certain level, for certain techniques, having rigid solid blade like this would actually be beneficial. So the next step up from there would be personalizing your training a little more. This could be something that's a little more specific to what you actually carry. So something like this. This is a small fixed blade in a sheath, so like most people aren't going to carry some, giant tanto unsheathed on their person, which is the kind of knife a lot of people actually use when they're in a dojo. You see these, giant wooden tantos and stuff. But the reality is you're not going to actually carry something like that on you. You're going to carry something like this. Or even more realistic, something like this. And this here is, this one's made by Emerson. And this one here is actually made by Keen Edge as well, and they actually sell the sheaths for it. But this one here is made by Emerson, and it's an excellent trainer. It opens and functions and is about the same size and weight as the actual knife I carry. So for example, let me just pull it out real quick. This is the actual knife. And not only is it much more likely for you to be carrying something like this, but it's actually much more likely for an assailant to be carrying something like this than some large generic dagger. The next category of training knives I'm going to be talking about will be what I'm going to call exotic knives. And these knives are really more for the appreciation of the art, for people who specialize in bladed weapon or knife martial arts. The Filipino martial arts, or Krav Maga, or even some of the Western martial arts. And are knives that you will probably not be defending yourself against or using in real life. Although I say that knowing that there are places in this world where people actually do have to use knives like this to defend themselves, or possibly defend themselves against weapons like these. So this is your machetes, your karambits, your kukris, your trench knives, and so on. Okay, so let's real quick take a look at a couple of these. So these three on the right are made by Cold Steel and are replicas of knives that Cold Steel actually makes and sells. So here, this one is based off of a World War I, World War II trench fighting knife. This one here would be a Bob Loveless sub-hilt fighting knife. Of course, this one is an M9 bayonet design. And then the blue machete is actually made by Blue Guns Company and is just a generic machete design. I don't know who makes the... This is a more of like a handmade wooden martial arts sword. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I hope you guys got something from the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.